Hi, Joe Stevens here again. Today we're going to talk about the second person that helped us become a success in 40 years of magic. And when I say second person, that doesn't mean he was second place. Not at all, because this person's name is Slydini, Tony Slydini, Quintinio Marucci. And he was an icon, just like Vernon was an icon. Slydini was on the east, Vernon was on the west, and they had their followers. So when they got together, it was really something, but we'll get into that later. In our first Magic Conclave in Wichita in 1976, we booked Slydini as a headliner. I heard about him and I thought, boy, if we could get him to come, and he did. I asked him what it would take. He says, pay me my fee, take care of my expenses. So we did that. He was a big head. He did close-up, he did lectures, he had a stage act that was beautiful. And our son, Mark, was most impressed with Slydini. He was around 10 years old, and we had Slydini to the house. Slydini did magic for our neighbors and our friends, and I know Mark was very infatuated by this magic man, you see. In fact, we have a lot of photos of Mark with him. On a personal note, Slydini taught me the famous apple trick. And he fooled the heck out of me when he did the apple trick, but when he taught it to me, it was really something that I cherished. I use it today in what few shows I do anymore. I always close my show with the famous Slydini apple trick, and I always mention Slydini is the one who taught me this. I feel like I owe him that, even though the audience, the public, doesn't remember Slydini like magicians do. But the apple trick was really something. Some of you know what it is. If you don't, why, someday you will find out about it. Getting back to the credit, how did Slydini really help us? Well, it was Jay Marshall that said, take the magic conventions to Las Vegas. So when I took Slydini to the airport, I said, you know, we want to do an event in Las Vegas. Jay Marshall says it would be better. Would you come? And he says, it's a good idea. I like you come. I come. We'll take care. So Slydini and I promoted the Desert Magic Seminar, and he was the headliner for 3 or 4 years. In that first year he was there, we had the second tier of performers, was Paul Gertner and Darwin Ortiz. So we had 95 people show up for that event, and they paid $125 each, and that was back in my goodness, Mark, the late 70s.
70s, yeah.
And but they came to see Slydini because the West Coast did not see him as much as the East Coast, and most of our attendees were from the West Coast. Mm-hmm. So it was a big success. So I got to give Slydini credit, as well as Jay Marshall, for helping the Desert Magic Seminar with Sigmund and Roy becoming the success that it was. A couple other notes that I have. I can remember going to visit Slydini in New York at his home with my son Mark, 345 West 45th Street. He had a humble, nice apartment on the first floor, and he entertained us. He wanted to cook spaghetti for us one night, I think, if I remember, but we had already eaten. But he was a consummate cook, too. But he showed us some magic, and we were visiting with him about, again, the next year's seminar in Las Vegas. But he lived alone. He had a lot of friends there, but he was a New Yorker in a way. He never got real close to too many people, but he was a gentleman, a real gentleman. And this photo that you're seeing here, when I saw it in his house, I was so infatuated with it, I said, well, someday if you ever want to sell it, I'd like to buy it from you, because this picture used to appear in the magazine ads for Slydini because he was a teacher. And he would give magic lessons, and a lot of people would fly into New York for business, but they also wanted to get a lesson from Slydini. So he says, you want, I give. And he didn't charge me for it, he just paid the shipping, so we got it all packed up and it came to Wichita. But this is the original photo that'll appear back in the Genie magazines back in the 1950s. You'll see this picture. So this has a treasure spot in our magic shop on our wall, Slydini's photo. Now, Mark has a story he would like to share with you about Slydini. Remember, he's a 10-year-old boy then.
Well, before I get into that, on this photo, wasn't there a situation where the photographer of this photo issued a cease and desist?
Yes. We ran the photo in the magazine ads for the Desert Magic Seminar, and we get a call from this photographer.
Yeah.
And he says, you cannot run that photo without permission, and you have to pay me for it. I says, well, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that. So I called Slydini, and Slydini knew the photographer. And he told the photographer, "You don't charge nothing. It's okay. It's a disease of my friend." And so the guy called us back and says, "Everything's clean. You don't have to worry, but use it any way you want to."
That was great.
That was a great story.
And the other story you mentioned, I don't know if you, with respect to when you had Vernon and Slydini at the first seminar, and didn't Slydini say he liked the idea because he was making money off of Vernon?
Yeah, let me explain that.
Okay.
This has never been public before, but since Slydini really started with us in the seminar, we split the profits. If there was any profits, we would split it after expenses. So he was a partner. This went on for 3 years, and then he finally told me at the end of 3 years, "It's yours. You can't use me every year as a headliner because they get tired of seeing me." He was pretty smart that way. But I think the last year, I said, how are we going to top this one we just finished? He says, "Why don't we bring Vernon and Slydini together? Vernon's on the West Coast, Slydini's on the East Coast."
Big rivalry there.
Big rivalry, there really was. Not with Vernon, not at all. Vernon, he was not that way. Slydini's ego was a little bigger, and that's all right, he deserved it. So we were able to bring them together when I approached them, that Vernon said, "Yeah, that's fine, I'll be happy to come." So Vernon and Slydini were together. Never before were they together. This was the first time they were together, the two icons of close-up magic. And we had a heck of a lot of fun with them that year. That year, both of them together.
Great.
Yeah,
That's a great story.
And I just can't say anything else except, he loved slot machines. That's why he loved to go to Vegas.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I just wonder where he is. He's out playing the slot machines. Because I don't think in New York at that time it was legal to gamble.
Probably not.
But he loved going to Vegas for the slot machines.
And the other story I was going to tell, when we were in New York, that's the first time I went to New York, and we went to his apartment. I was a little boy, and from Kansas, that was a huge cultural experience for me. Wow. And we got hustled right off the bus. A guy wanted to give us a ride, but he wasn't a taxi driver. It was just, anyways. So we get to his apartment. It's a small apartment, and he had HBO, which we had never had in the Midwest. I was just so fascinated by that. So later that night, we went for a walk to get a sandwich, and I think you were talking with his partner Murray, business partner, and Slydini and I were a little bit in front, headed to a place to get something to eat, and Slydini said to me, it was cute, he goes, "They talk too much about magic, too much about magic." So I thought that was neat, that the guy was, the quintessential perfectionist, knew when to put it to bed anyway. So great memories.
What a guy.
Yeah.
I'll always remember him because we're indebted to him for helping us become successful. Thanks, Tony. All the best.